Hey, I'm Kenneth Wajda. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my weekly experiential equipment talks where I talk about cameras that I use. And before we get started, if there's any way that you can support the show, if you can send a few dollars my way through my Patreon, or there's a website I created a link at supportkenneth.com, and I also have links if you want to throw some support toward the Wise Photo Project and film and frames, or any way you can. It's been a tough year as a photographer making any kind of an income with freelance work, so I'm making videos instead. If you can support, I would really appreciate it. All right, today's talk is about, I've been shooting this lately. The Nikon D610 with a 28 is so easy for me to shoot for street out the car window. And that's what I've been doing a lot the last year, shooting for Roy Stryker out the car window, shooting, wherever I go, out the car window. But the Nikon is so simple. And sometimes it's good to shake up our world and look at a different view. So this is the Sony A6000. I bought this years ago at an open box sale at Best Buy. And I'm surprised they're still selling them. But I bought this probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I bought it to have a video camera for when I do conference work and conventions. Sometimes they want video, and this is an easy camera to pull out to have video as opposed to using the Nikons, because I can get image stabilization with the Sony. But I'm not using it like that for this. Now I'm using it with a Leica 50mm f1.5 Summarit lens, which I like having a manual focus lens with a focus tab. And if you set it up for focus peaking, I can tell exactly where my focus is. And I know that's going to be in focus because the focus peaking is helping me. I've never been a big fan of electronic viewfinders, so I turn the viewfinder black and white when I use this. And I find that it makes it so I'm really just looking at composition and not color that way. And it feels less like an electronic viewfinder, I suppose. And what I'm doing is I'm not using any kind of review, so after I shoot a picture, nothing comes up on the screen. I have this screen off, and the only screen I have on is the viewfinder. I'm trying to save batteries that way, which I'm not sure it's actually doing, but I figure it seems smaller to me, so in my common sense, I think that it would use less battery. But the idea is, with this 50 on the A6000, I get, with a 1.5 crop sensor, I get an effective focal length of 75mm, which I like. I'm not always a telephoto guy, but I like having a telephoto on this. I kind of like the 75. It's been a fun focal length to shoot. And I don't have a 75mm Leica lens. I go from a 50 to a 90. So it's kind of nice to be shooting this. And it gives me a different perspective for both my Roy Stryker work and my street work. And it's small, it fits in a case. So that's been the latest camera I've been taking out to kind of shake up my shooting style and create something that doesn't look like everything else. Because I think that's a big challenge in the photography world. You have to create things, but everything can't look alike. And sometimes that's a reason why you want to use a 200 and not a 20. But not all the time. But they make these adapters for 10, 12 bucks on eBay. This is a newer NEEWER brand, and I think they're all about the same. They basically are a spacer, so that it spaces the lens at the right distance to the sensor. And you have your own focus that you create. I don't think any of them really allow autofocus, but for me, I like a manual focus camera. I never really liked the little 16 to 50 Sony lens that was on it. It felt like a fiddly little point and shoot camera kit lens. But with this, I feel like I'm shooting with something where I have some control, and I'm shooting with Leica lens that I know has the quality built in. So that's been my latest go-to. And if you're looking to put a mount onto a mirrorless camera and use it with some of the older lenses that are available, I highly recommend it. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of an electronic viewfinder, but this one works for me. And this camera is an older camera that they're still making and selling. You can probably get this for a lot less expensive than the latest version, the 6300 and the 6400. But this is the original A6000 It's 24 megapixel. It's good for having a small camera in my kit when I'm going out to just shoot some street or some Roy Stryker out the car window, something with a little bit more reach. The other day I was driving along and I saw a taco stand with 4 guys who rode their horses over to get lunch. So I got out and I just said, hey, can I? And they, sure. And I photographed them. Different point of view. With a 24 or 28, I'd have to get in much closer. I was able to stay down onto the sidewalk and photograph them and fill the frame and not have to be right in with them at their space or crop later. So different ones for different reasons, different choices. This one I like. The A6000, if anything, I wish the body was a little bigger. I kind of like things that have something to hold on to and it's little. And there's battery extenders you can get. I may have to look into one of those, but as it is, the only thing I would say I don't like about it is it's a little bit small. But I like a big honking camera, and this one certainly isn't that. All right, that's today's photography talk. If you're enjoying these, hit the subscribe button. If you could support, hit the Patreon. Thanks to everybody who contributes, and I will be back next week and we'll talk photography. As always, here's the good light.